you liked learning all about personal relevance. I think visual imagery is one of the more enjoyable vocabulary building techniques because it allows you an opportunity to get creative. Even if you don't consider yourself the creative type, I hope you spend some time playing around with visual imagery anyway. I'll bet with just a bit of effort on your part, you'll find you can get pretty creative. Now, I'm going to tell you about an opportunity to use something other than words to help improve your vocabulary. It's another fun vocabulary building technique, and I'll bet you'll agree, studying is a lot easier when it's fun. Before getting started though, let me ask you a question. Have you ever noticed how difficult it sometimes is to understand something that someone describes using only words? No matter how hard you try, you find you simply can't grasp what the person is trying to say. It's frustrating, but guess what? It happens to all of us at some point or another. But add an image to the description and suddenly everything becomes a lot clearer. Well, that problem is something you may encounter while trying to improve your vocabulary. A definition that consists only of words isn't usually enough to deliver that depth of processing I spoke about a few lessons back. Depth of processing has to do with the amount of processing a piece of information undergoes after it is introduced into memory. Plus, word-only definitions can be difficult to keep track of, especially when you're trying to learn several new words at the same time. That's why Ultimate Vocabulary offers you a number of different resources and tools you can use to link a word to relevant information at the time of learning. I've talked about repetition and personal relevance already. So now I'm going to talk about another technique you can use to link a word to relevant information called visual imagery. Visual imagery involves the creation of visual images to represent words. The technique is a great way to remember words and in most instances is very effective. I say most instances because there are a few times when visual imagery may not work. When it works and when it doesn't typically depends on the word itself. Some words are simply easier to visualize than others. Generally, the visual imagery technique works best with words that correspond to concrete objects. An example of a concrete object is a computer. It is easy to visualize a computer while saying the word computer in your head. Doing so will enhance your memory and understanding of the word and lower the chance of forgetting it. Apple, dog, building, column, secretary, bloom, and reward are more examples of words that represent concrete objects. Try saying any of these words, apple, dog, building, column, secretary, bloom, or reward, and as you say one, try to form a visual image of the word in your head. It doesn't have to be an elaborate image, so don't get bogged down in the details. This is easy, right? But what about words like ubiquitous, longevity, benign, or render? What kind of image could you create in your head for any of these words? Words like these get a little trickier, don't they? That's why I said the technique is effective in many instances. Visual imagery doesn't work with every word. Specifically, visual imagery does not work very well with words that denote abstract concepts. An example of an abstract concept is the word truth. This word is much harder to visualize. That's why we don't recommend using visual imagery to learn this kind of word. For abstract words, other techniques I have already covered, such as repetition or read and record, which I will cover in future lessons, will be more useful. Using visual imagery to build your vocabulary is easy. As a general guide, when you read the definition of a word, try to picture it in your head. If you can easily form a picture of an object that reminds you of the word, like computer, then imagine the picture for a few seconds while saying the word to yourself. In addition, Ultimate Vocabulary enables you to attach an actual image to any word in your word lists. It doesn't matter whether the words are part of a predefined list or whether they're part of a custom list that you create. Adding images gives you one more way to study your words and increase your chances of remembering the word and its definition. It also improves your chances of being able to recall the word next time you need it in your communication. Adding an image to a word is easy when you use Ultimate Vocabulary to improve your vocabulary. When you are browsing any resource in Word Discover, you can simply right-click on an image. Ultimate Vocabulary will then give you the option to associate the image with the current word. You can also browse for an image file on your computer by clicking Browse in the Image section of Word Discover. I wish I had more to say about visual imagery, but I don't. It's a pretty easy technique to grasp, provided you keep in mind that it doesn't work for every word. But for those it does, I encourage you to use it. Remember, a picture is worth 1,000 words. Next up, I'll tell you all about read and record. I promise when I'm through, you'll have a whole different opinion about reading.